How's everybody doing? I'm Wayne Dulaney. Work with local seed company and then also owner of partner in Gen 4 Farms. We're going to talk about using aerial imagery. Don Cummins over here is going to be talking. We're going to kind of tag team this thing back and forth. And so Don has been working, me and him have been working together the past 2 years, pretty extensive this last year. So, see if I hit the right. Oh, there we go. Said Wayne Dulaney, I'm a 4th generation farmer there in Clarksdale, went to Mississippi State. Started out with Zeneca Ag Products and managed a chemical location. Then came back to Dulaney Seed there, and then me and my brother took over the farm. Serve on executive committee for Mississippi Soybean Promotion Board and helping the selection of products with Dulaney Seed and local seed company. Gen 4 Farms, just tell you a little bit about it. Like I said, we're 4th generation. Farm's 4,000 acres, mostly all heavy clay. 99% of it's furrow irrigated. We got just over 300,000 bushels of on-farm grain storage. Rice, soybeans is the main mix. Always focusing on about a third to half of each one of those crops, usually in seed production. Wheat is grown most years. Corn, we started in 2005. Then we started, and it's been kind of on a rotational need and market driven, because with my particular soils, you know, we've got to have a better price. Everything's graded on 10th slope clay, so it doesn't always make the best corn, you know. So, but you know, we usually do pretty good with it. Grown grain sorghum a couple times. How two brothers farm together, medication and defined duties. You know, you got, so that's always, so my brother JD does the day-to-day on the farm. My duties are, I kind of set the crop plan. I do the scouting for weeds, insect disease, take care of all the FSA, NRCS, and the marketing, and handle all the storage and logistics in the fall. You know, we kind of got here, you know, I was steady trying to, you know, build the yields even more. You know, we've gotten in this market now, you've got to make yield to make profits. You know, everybody's gotten about as lean as they can on a lot of things in the farming operation. So, you know, it's all about yield. And one thing my dad always says, he says, man, it's attention to detail. You got to pay attention to details and stuff. So, you know, on our marginal soils, we don't have much forgiveness as somebody does on a class 1 type soil when it comes to things. And I guess the first thing that really helped me is this past year, we finally got all of our yield monitoring stuff where we're cloud data transfer. You know, the combines come in at night, it's hitting the Wi-Fi at the shop, it's going to the cloud. So within 10 minutes of them parking, I've got the information on my iPad instead of waiting for my retailer who was managing my data, me getting a nice pretty coloring book in February. You know, there's nothing I can do with that information then. So I could instantly start addressing problems, drainage issues. I knew where to send the injector bucket, you know, start working holes out and things like that. So then I kind of got into the imagery a little bit, and we decided doing the imagery let me see, even before harvest, started giving me the same type information my yield maps were giving me. I'm going to let Don kind of talk here about air data solutions and stuff.
Okay. Let me grab your
Yeah, you want to be here by the mic, they said.
I got a lot of clicking to do.
Yeah.
My name's Don Cummins, and like you said, I collect aerial imagery. Been working with Wayne for a couple of years. He's taught me a lot, actually. This is my family. 3-year-old in the back seat, that's an old picture, and my wife. We do some drone work. We do some manned aircraft work. We are based in Natchitoches, Louisiana. If anybody doesn't know where that is, it's that little yellow pin. This is kind of our operating radius. Blue circle is where we can be in about an hour. The red circle is where we can be in about 2 hours. So our main goal, our focus is to get to you as quickly as possible when you call. So if you have some imagery needs, sometimes you got a really short time window to collect it, so we can be there pretty quick. Real quick, what we do, just kind of the workflow process of what happens is, if you pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, looking for some aerial imagery, one of the first questions I'll ask you is, what do you want to do with it? Before we even go any farther, I'd like to know what the plan is for the imagery, because we can take a lot of pictures and they could be useless to you if you don't have any reason for them. So Wayne's always been real good about that. He already had the plan before he called, and he'd tell me, this is exactly what we're going to do with the imagery as soon as we collect it. So the first thing we do is draw a boundary around your field, and next I'll get in the air. We'll start gridding your field. We'll take overlapping pictures. We basically flight lines based on whatever altitude we're at, the resolution that you need, and we'll collect enough imagery over the field to stitch them all together into one ortho mosaic map. Then we send them into AgPixel, which is our processing company. They'll take all the photos, combine them all, make the maps out of them. You can see the times over here is the processing time. Most of them 4 or 5 hours. Some of them, up to 21 hours or so. That's pretty typical. Most of the time, when I fly that day, that night, I'll upload them, get them processed, and by the next morning, you usually have them to look at. You'll get them delivered on a portal. It looks just like this. All of the maps, several vegetation indexes, original color infrared maps. You can download them. Just click on these buttons. They'll open up in any GIS software that you have, like SMS or ArcGIS, or pretty much any kind of geospatial software that you have, they'll work in. And so this is the end product right here, where the maps are delivered. After that, which we'll get into in a second, is what we do after those maps are here, and where we do some further analysis or ground truthing or whatever comes next. A screenshot of a mobile application, so you can take it in the field with you. You can know where you're at. You can pull your samples or take pictures or whatever you need to do with it. 2017, just a summary, we mapped about 1.2 million acres, 6 states, typically operate in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas. We put about 310 hours on the aircraft this year. So that's generally our operating area, but we can go coast to coast, obviously. This first map is a color infrared. That's why it's mostly red or purplish. We convert it to an NDVI. Does everybody know what an NDVI is or what it does? Had any experience with it?
You explain that. Might tell them what the colors mean.
Okay, so green on the NDVI map, green is typically better. It's healthier vegetation. We're basically mapping the amount of chlorophyll in the leaves. So yellow is relatively less vegetation, less health than the green, and then red is your more stressed vegetation. So basically, it's just a real easy to see relative stress map of your field. The purpose of this flight was to detect weeds in the rice. You can see it was taken real early. There's still a lot of bare earth showing in between the rice, and we're able to pick up some weeds, which are those brighter red, kind of pinkish areas. So Wayne called me and he said, hey, I know I've got some weeds in these fields. I want to spray them. Will you shoot some pictures of them, see if you can tell me where they are so we know where to go spot spray them. So once we got the imagery, we run it through a classification process where we pulled out those weeds. So purple is a weed. You can see them down here in this area. Makes them a lot easier to see. This is data-based, so all of those weed locations are backed with coordinates. They're actually shape files, so you could direct the GPS-driven equipment to those locations.
Stupid question you may have answered. How do you know the weeds?
Well, we took the imagery and we located areas that we suspected were weeds.
Okay.
And then we run the classification process. Is you basically teach the computer to say, this is weed, this is rice, this is water, and then it spits out all the data for you. So it just fast forwards the time it takes for you to manually go in and
I already knew those weeds are pretty there. We were talking about it, we just taken the imagery, and I said, can you tell me, I said, I know it's weeds right here. And so then we started looking at the whole rice crop there. And so, you know, so we had a good starting point, like you said, to get the computer zeroed in on that. And basically what you've got there, go show it where the NDVI, where you see how it's really green, where you got the purple and you got the really heavy green right there, hardly any variation. That's also a shadow effect from a tree line. So what happened there, basically the airplane, we were trying to get it in there that morning, and the woods was the tree line was keeping our herbicide from really getting down in there. The airplane was creating a vortex there.
So I got a laugh because he kind of set me up because he said, "I'm looking for weeds. Can you spot them?" And I found out later that he already knew where they were. He just wanted to see if I could locate them as well.
I'm familiar with that. Yeah. I'm familiar with that.
We covered that. I think we'll get back to some of your slides
Okay.
here in a second. This was the same thing. This is more rice, looking for the weeds in it. First was color infrared, NDVI map, and then a zoom in to show a particular area of the weeds, and then a classification map. So we wound up finding a lot of weeds down in this area, some standing water up here, and again, fairly accurate to what you were seeing.
Yeah, you want to talk about what we kind of found on this block? It's like a 300-acre block of rice right there, and it's well, that whole group that we had. I told them just shoot it all as one image and give me the thing, the data, you know, the shot to it. Well, the first image he sent me, we saw hardly any variations compared to that other field we saw, and he said, I don't know, something that right. So I agree. I know it's some variation out there. I knew that was some deep water up there. And what we realized, I said, let's break it back because there's 3 different varieties. Let's see the pointer right here. Basically, this top piece right here was Lacaste rice. This over here was Chenier, and everything down here was Rex rice. And so basically the Rex had a bigger flag. It's got a bigger leaf tissue surface on it. So that was, when we lumped it all together, it was skewing the rest of it. So it was showing no variation. So then we broke it back out by the variety. That's when we started seeing our differentiation.
These are 2 separate dates that we flew the same field. So this is that same, the first rice field that we were talking about, NDVI, May 25th, and then flew it again June 20th, just to see the results of whatever work you did between.
And that's what you can see. We basically have helped it. This was about 10 days after flood, when we 10-15 days after flood here, and this was just about 10 days after our mid-season fertilizer application. So you know, and I'll get there and tell you, we took some tissue samples and addressed it through that in these really red areas.
Was that stress, the red areas, due to a lack of
The zinc and boron was the main thing. A couple of those spots we didn't have a good stand there. We had some deep water, tender stand. Right here we had a sprayer issue, and we had some really, really white rice from the command. You know, it got more or less like a 1 to 3 rate instead of a 1 to 8 rate.
This is showing the aerial variable rate gates and equipment that we work with. There's Air Repair is probably the best known. They're out of Cleveland. They've been manufacturing them for a long time. We've wrote prescriptions that will work with those Air Repair gates. Have successfully flown them in, I think, 4 different aircraft this past year. The Vondern system is manufactured in Arkansas. It's a newer system. Works completely differently, but also we can produce variable rate prescription maps that will work in those aircraft as well. I believe the plane you flew was Air Repair.
It is Air Repair, and that's one thing I'm gonna give Don and them a little credit. You know, we were talking about this last year, how, you know, maybe rice, you're gonna need variable rate granular application. Well, there's only one person that was out there being able to write prescriptions for Air Repair. Don went up there and spent a couple of days, and so they finally figured out Air Repair couldn't even tell you how to write a prescription for their gates.
Yeah, they didn't know. There's just one guy who could, but I can't take the credit because we racked our beat my head against the wall for about 2 years trying to figure it out, and I finally had to hire a developer friend of mine who could actually program the software that would make the computers talk to each other. So I give him a lot of the credit, but finally we got all the pieces together so that we can actually send imagery to a prescription to the airplane, and it works really well.
All right, this is the imagery that Don did for me in 2016 crop year, and basically this was the image here. This was just one of the fields of rice we took. We were basically taking it swollen boot about 40 days before harvest there, and this is what caught my attention. We went in there, I did some tissue sampling. We saw we were zinc deficient in these really yellow areas here. A little bit was in some other fields had some water issues, but it was too late to really do anything. I just wasn't gonna make a zinc application that way. I mean, we were fixing to put out the fungicide on it, but he told me, he said, Wayne, what you'll see is your yield map is gonna mirror what that image said in that late season. And basically that's what it is. That's my yield map kind of showing, you know, the same pattern right there. That's the lower yielding part. It had more yellow and stuff in it. And so that what's got me, so man, this has got me thinking, well, I can be more proactive about things. And that's how we started this imagery earlier this year. You know, we started with the images on the rice about 20, I guess we were 15 to 20 days after we flooded, after that rice finally got that good green lush look to it, and it really took off growing. Because if we took anything earlier than that, I said we're going to pick up way too much water, and you know you're not going to really. You're starting to, you can see those separations in the good and the bad, and then we use the Avenza app, which is very simple to use to get our scouting points on. I can just take this out there on my iPhone, walk to that point, pull a tissue sample there, and after the sample results are done, we determine, you know, the rice was zinc and boron deficient. We used a Wolf Trax boron and zinc to coat onto the urea at mid-season to work on correcting this problem. And we had already put out a quart of foliar zinc with a herbicide, and we had zinc seed treatment. So what we're seeing is these I'm producing all conventional rice that it's taking a ton of zinc on these high pH soils, heavy clay, because we're being short on phosphorus. You gotta have the zinc to get the phosphorus in the plant. And this is the Avenza app that he talked about. So, you know, I went right here, and it's just simple to use is what I liked about it. I walked up the iPhone, that's a screenshot off my iPhone, went to that spot, dropped a pin, and I'm able to take photographs of the actual rice right there. I'm logging that sample point as the same name on my tissue sample, so everything's easy to come back and work with. And you can see these are tissue samples, and right here, this was the green area, and our phosphorus and stuff is at a good level. Anything we start getting below the 60% is when it can start to be a limiting factor on the way these tissue analysis is done by ag systems. And we get down here and we see that our zinc is low, phosphorus, but when our zinc gets real low, our phosphorus really falls down. Our boron has been low right here too. So that's kind of how we came up to do that. And Wolf Trax was one of the only ways we really knew how we could get that on with a granular application with my mid-season coming up. Now I could have done a foliar, but that would have been just a different trip with an airplane. I'm always trying to do these things I'm trying to schedule him to fly 10 days, 2 weeks before I've got a known application. So I can go out, do my ground truth, and figure out what's going on, so I'm not making another trip across the field. Just trying to be efficient as I can about it and doing it all together. This is the yield data off that field, and you saw some of the imagery there. We really, we still had some low here, but this picked up down here. All this in here, we really filled up. It was 190 bushel average, and we still had not cut the levees in that field. Right here, I'll show you, we've got some skewed data here that's kind of hurt us, and I'll show you why. We cut this, it was so darn muddy. We were couldn't bring a grain cart into the field, and we were having to walk the combines out to the end. And so down there on the end where all that red was, guys might not have been lifting the header all the way up, so we're still logging and different things like that.
That was in August, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the last field we cut. That was 2 days. That was the Friday before Harvey hit. So we got out before then, but this year is weird. We'd gotten so dry. That field was really dry, and we got like 1.5 inches of rain, and then it had this like slop about this deep. It wasn't like you could sink down and get good traction. Yeah, we even tried to run our big 4-wheel drive tractor. You just go up there and just slick over. Soybean imagery. We started working on this too, and this is just one single field that I kind of split out here that we did. We had a lot of yellow in it, and we came in, did our tissue sampling, and the one thing we found out is our manganese levels are really low. Our soils are typically really high in manganese. Well, we're like, Paul Bodenstein I work with Ag Systems do this tissue analysis. He says, Wayne, you don't have enough soil microbial activity going on, so your phosphorus, you're just not, the plant is not taking up anything. So what do you do to correct it? And he suggested putting out hydrohume, which is a Helena product because it's got a lot of humic acid in it. You've got to get the humic acid in the soil to get it going. Well, that was going to be kind of expensive at the rates they were talking about to get enough humic acid out there. Then I ended up, had a friend of mine tell me about a fertilizer called Top Choice. And it's basically municipality sewer sludge dried down and crystallized. All the water taken out of it, so it's loaded with humic acid. And basically $120 a ton brought to my farm headquarters. And I was like, well, I'll play with a truckload. So I got 20 tons, that you had to schedule to be shipped out of Kentucky down here and all that. So I didn't want to go all out. So that's when I talked to Don about doing the variable rate, and we'll kind of show you some of that. So basically we took the variable rate and spread it over a lot of acres. But this is the yield map, and you can see how much more uniform we picked up that field by just putting the humic acid on there through the Top Choice. This shows basically we had 1,082 acres that we looked at that time with NDVI. We did variable application rate over 926 acres of that using just 20 tons of fertilizer. And all this that's red is showing that it was a 200-pound application. We were just hitting the bottoms of the fields. This particular field is one we hit just basically the whole field with just 100 pounds of product. And we were real satisfied with it. This far field down in the corner, that was the only field we did not really get any response from. And after looking at yield maps this fall, we kind of went back to our soil sampling part and looked at everything. We found out we're copper deficient. And on that, how many people have ever really gone in and looked at the samples on copper deficiency? And they've been seeing it on the East Coast some, and that's where Paul Bodenstein helps me with some of the stuff we were looking at. And we just, he said next year we just need to correct it. And copper is cheap. He's talking about a couple applications of copper can build you back up to a lifetime. So you're talking about $10 worth of copper you put out and build you back up to another lifetime supply in the ground. It's one of the micronutrients. It's not very soluble. Plant can take it up. It just doesn't go anywhere. It didn't like zinc and some of the other stuff. And this is Don's map here, just showing more how we had the rates broke down and everything. What was the difference? That's the imagery, isn't it, Don?
Right, that's the NDVI, and then the next one is actual prescription map. So we were able to cut a lot of the fields completely out because he said, don't want to fly anything on them. So basically the yellow and the red is what got what was applied. And the plane flew them all at the same time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It takes all this ground truth, and like this right here, this really red, like, why didn't you do it? That's actually about 30 acres of a field that I've got leased to genetic companies that they're doing plot research. So you've got individual plots, so it's picking up a whole lot of ground there and things like that. So and that was one thing I saw whenever, it's funny, last winter I was getting bombarded with people trying to sell me imagery. So, you know, they found out I did a little bit of imagery, and everybody's trying to tell you, they can tell you how to farm from their imagery. They've got everything in there. All you need to do is fly it, and they're going to tell you what to do. And I like, look, I've done enough as I know that's not the way it's going to work. You know, they were telling me they had algorithms to tell you how much nitrogen you need to do variable rate nitrogen by the colors. It might, but it's just a tool to go scout and help you figure out what's going on. It's not worth anything unless you're going out there ground truthing it. What you want to do?
This is that field you're talking about with the coppers.
Yeah.
If you click it, it'll show the NDVI next to it, but it's just that field pulled out separate.
At first, I thought this was a chloride issue because we don't have salt issues in our area. But last year, I was seeing the same pattern here. But we were planting an excluder soybean in this field, ran out and went there and filled in part of this, and the yield was like way off. And I was like, dang, it must be excluder or something, salt problem. But then that's why I had soil tested last year and didn't see that, but I had to pick up the copper deal.
What about that line going straight up to the middle of that field? What's going on there?
That is what you call when you spray, when you're out putting down your pre-herbicide at 1 in the morning, and then you come back the next day and you get on the wrong line, you get a 2X rate of herbicide. That's what that is.
It burns. Huh?
Yeah, the beans are very stunted when they've got, they had about, I guess, 28 ounces of Authority MTZ and they had a half a gallon of Dual on.
I'm glad you asked, because I asked him too when we made the prescription. I said, "Do you want to put something there?" And he's like, "No, don't worry about it."
That's one thing that
Tell you, he told us.
yeah, that's one of these things. It will tell you all your screw ups too. It's just like the command and stuff like that. So we're not perfect at all. And this is just more the foliar. This is when we went back in and did some more imagery. Well, this is the same.
This is the center
Okay.
of those same fields that we looked at. It's kind of a duplicate slide.
All right, this is kind of interesting here. This is the imagery I was putting out. These are some Group 5 seed production soybeans I was growing here. 5.8 maturity group, planted behind corn, planted mid-May. And we were sitting there, it's time to fungicide there, like at R3. And so we decided, I said, I want to put a foliar feed with it. I used a lot of product from Washita Fertilizer, and I said, I just think we've got a really good pod set going here. I want to hold everything I can possibly hold. I don't want to shed anything. So we put out 3 gallons of their Pod Pro out with a fungicide. Well, I said, but I'm going to leave some checks. So we went right in here, had the pilot leave this off, because this is the blacktop road, makes a hard curve, right? So we knew we had a dead, good spot here. That's the well in the middle of the field. Well, 10 days later, I said, Don, you go and take some imagery. I said, I'm not going to do anything else. It's just I want to see if it'll show anything. And that's what that showed. That's the difference of just where we had the foliar feed and we didn't. Now, I can't tell you that I got anything out of it. So did it really help or not? We don't see a whole lot of variation difference between the two sides. That's kind of our line right there. The other thing that really got my attention last 2016, when I first started getting this data all coming into my iPad, coming off through Ag Infinity with my combine monitors, was I like to have a fit. I went around and figured out all these red spots around your wells here, and we're leaking hydrants, and people don't put the gaskets in or don't tie the poly pipe. I spent one afternoon figuring out all the yield loss. It was 2,000 bushels of grain that I lost from my people not paying attention, making sure the gaskets were under the hydrants and things like that. you know, and it's attention to detail, and you know, we did a lot better this year, but that's one of them that still we had a little issue there.
These were two separate flights, June 20 and August 18, and I believe we were looking for some Johnson grass weeds and things.
No, this was another one of those flights. Just wanted to see had we done anything. We
Okay,
put out some foliar, we put out some moly and iron on this. This is a field I was trying to put into the Mississippi high yield competition here, and I was trying to just see how we were progressing with it. They were 4.9, planted the 1st of May, and we've done a lot of extra things on this stuff. It's following corn. It's one of my highest yielding productive fields, a good mixed clay loam. And the whole thing I learned out of this, nothing trumps planting date on soybeans. Because what we found out was I waited to 1st of May to plant it. We'd put out a herbicide early, so we got all of our initial burn out of our metribuzin and all that stuff. The plants actually had 3 more nodes of growth on it than any other bean on the farm. We're like, man, we're fixing to nail it. We got this thing figured out. They cut 78 bushels, good, but the very first field I planted on the farm on April the 10th, I think, or 9th, didn't do anything special, just put out a fungicide, and that's it. You know, they cut 82 bushels on a lot worse ground. I mean, they cut 92 bushels on a lot worse ground. This is another one we split the field with the foliar feed here. This side had the foliar feed, this side didn't in that imagery. And, you know, nothing really to see there. Actually, this side looked a little worse. But we had some low areas down here, and then let you speak on this.
Okay. So Wayne asked about some satellite imagery and using it as I guess like a preliminary. The satellite imagery is delivered when the satellites take it, so we have no control over that. If there's cloud cover, there's cloud cover. If it's clear, it's clear. But this is just a comparison. If you'll click it one more time, those are the color infrared images, and then this is the NDVI images taken 3 days apart. This was corn. So you can see a lot of similarities. You can't see quite the detail in the manned aircraft imagery, which that was probably 6-inch resolution versus a satellite. What is a satellite, Kevin?
This is 10 meter.
10 meter. So just so you can see what the difference would be, satellite versus manned aircraft. And basically, on average, we get 3 satellite shots a month right now. I understand there's some companies that are trying to get more satellites in the constellations. You can get them more regular. When they go live, then we'll have them. But until then, we're getting all we can. So that's kind of out of our control. We just take it when we get it and deliver it on the exact same portal. You can use it in the same way as the aerial imagery, so it's real easy to use.
You know, that was my thing. Me and Don were just talking the other day, and I was like, you know, if we had the satellite imagery so we can just like start to see a trend of something happening, then I can get him scheduled to come up and get it flown. And I was looking, you know, a little bit cheaper cost, but like he told me, he said, yeah, if you could get one a week and you knew you were going to get a decent image once a week, it would be something. But right now, they're not at that stage.
About 14 days, 10 to 14 days on average.
And, you know, a lot can happen in 10 to 14 days on the farm. And just want to thank everybody I work with here. Kind of got us where we are. You know, the big thing that really got me here is using, we've been yield mapping for 15 years plus, but we weren't doing nothing with it. I was hung. What do you do with this stuff? You got a book full of pictures. Until I started getting that stuff, you know, almost real time or, you know, within 24 hours of harvest, you can start making management decisions then in the fall. Then the imagery kind of threw me back, like I said, and I can start doing stuff in season. It's kind of giving me a picture of what the yield map could look like. I had one of my customers send this to me the other day. And I thought, that's pretty good. Still focused, still positive, still farming. And it's easy to, right now to get unfocused. That's what we were talking about. Just the markets aren't really great, guys. We just got to sit here and say, stick to what's working. Don't be trying to chase the rainbow. One guy I was visiting with, he was talking about his, man, I really need to get corn back in my rotation. I see it's hurting me now, but he's a 9,000 acre grower. He only wants to grow corn when corn prices are really good. So then he goes out and grows 3,000 acres of corn and doesn't make the best yields because he's putting it everywhere he thinks he needs it then, instead of just growing 500 acres every year and managing it the best he can manage that 500 acres better than you can 3,000 acres. Got anything else to add, Don?
No, that's about it. We've got some info on the back. Grab the brochures or cards, and feel free to ask any questions. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Wayne, you're the farmer. What are you feeling like this imagery is giving you a decent return on your investment?
Yeah, I think so. I have not gone the whole step yet of saying we're flying every acre on a certain sequence. This year I was kind of using it as where I think I can get the most return on it, and I feel like I got my money out of it. I mean, it was a good year for us on the farm anyway, growing season wise, but it's learning how to use it. And that's the thing I can say. I don't think any one person, everybody's going to find a different need for it. If you just want if you're just going to sit there and get an email and get some imagery and look at it and not go stomp the field or have a scout or consultant that you're working real close with to help that's wanting to work with this too, I don't think it's it's going to be beneficial is the main thing I've seen with it.
I call that refrigerator door art.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good.
What does it cost to get pictures like yours?
Basically, $2 is where we start. $2 an acre. I have a minimum acres, to get out to your field. So if you fly over 3,000, it's still about $1 an acre. So I can drop the price if I get enough acres to make it more efficient for me to get out there.
Is that for one flight?
Each flight, yes, sir. Yep.
I think I ended up averaging this year, and what all we did was I spent about $7.50, maybe $8. I can't remember what. I went back and looked, kind of acres I flew, and different things.
And the prescription work is $1/4 an acre. So if we're creating prescriptions for you, it takes a lot of extra time. So you look at another $1/4 for that.
If you're going to think about doing it, getting it, that's a deal right now. Because other people I'd looked in, I'd had some aerial prescription work done before, and it was almost $1 an acre.
Well, we're not making money on the prescription work, but if it helps you, that's like Wayne said. We're not. I don't want to map the entire state of Mississippi. I want to work with a few select farmers who really want to use something with his imagery, and that's why he asked me to come speak with him, and asked me to come back next year. So that's the kind of people that we're looking to work with, and we're not trying to just blanket everybody. Just try to do what's most useful.
Wayne, what crop do you think is use it the most on?
I think it's every crop. I mean, I think corn is probably. I just didn't have any corn on the farm this year. I think you probably gonna get the best return on corn as you will anything. Because how hard is it to scout corn? Once it gets over this tall, you're not able to really see anything that's going on out there. So, cotton, I think it's got a, the cotton, this is where this stuff first came in 10 years ago, in time, kind of blazed away. Their whole thing was using it for growth regulator, just putting your picks where you needed it. And that's gotten so cheap, everybody just does it, and maybe doing defoliation work. But now, I think it's a lot. It's using some agronomy. You got to look at your soil task. You look at your, and then go take your tissue test, because a tissue test is nothing but a snapshot in time of that plant at that day. You take a tissue test 4 days later, it could be different. So it's you know, it's just it's a good judge of what's going on. But
But you've got to have a base point to start from.
that's right.
Start somewhere.
That's right. And that's what I like, man. I'm all about simplicity, man. When he showed me the Venza app, well, that's where I was like, oh, I've already used that. Our hunting club had our Mississippi Fish and Wildlife or a hunting club on a Venza app and had our rows drawn in, so I already knew how to use that thing. It wasn't that hard, you know. Whenever my 72-year-old dad could use it on his iPhone, I was like, yeah, you know. So you just go out there and drop a pin and you can take a snapshot and it's there. Its only flaw that I have with it right now is if I do it on my phone, it's just on my phone. It doesn't cloud transfer to my iPad or my computer or anything like that. It's stuck there.
You can use it on your iPad, but you have to do it all again.
Just do it all again.
Right.
So I ended up finding me one of these bags. They called it Academy. You put your iPad in here and it's sealed up so you don't drop it in the water out there. And because I like the iPad, it's easier to really see better, take better pictures with it.
Thank y'all for listening.
Appreciate it. We'll be around. Any other questions?
All right, you got a